Women were gaslit, women were ignored, women were not included in the conversation. Not okay, not right. So every woman is operating and being cared for in a system that was not built for her, nor was she considered in it. You are dealing with a very, very unique type of patient. Women have proved and continue to prove that if you do not cover their health care, they absolutely will pay for it.
For decades, women's health has been limited by the absence of technology built specifically for it. At Hera Biotech, CEO Somer Barburek is working to change that, developing precision diagnostics that bring scientific clarity to conditions that were long misunderstood and often overlooked. Welcome to MedAccess AI, Stories in Life Sciences podcast, where we dive deep into the stories shaping the future of medicine and technology. I'm your host, Christopher Wilson, and here's my conversation with Somer Barburek.
It seems like you went kind of straight early into entrepreneurship, like straight from me. Is that right? Like straight after university?
So super strange story for me. So when I went to college right out of high school, I went on a rodeo scholarship. I was a barrel racer, and then I went to the college national finals. I was a reserve national champion, and then I went pro for a while. Then I moved back home after I decided that professional barrel racer probably wasn't going to have a solid retirement plan to it. And I met my now husband, who sent me back to school. He was like, "You are actually far too intelligent not to have a college degree. Let's go ahead and check that box." And so that's how I got into entrepreneurship, and then invented the medical device, and then got picked up by VC.
Interesting. Okay. And then just a little bit more about your role, the CEO at Hera Tech, and just how you align with the vision and what you all are doing there.
I founded Hera after working at the VC fund that I was working at. I worked there for about 10 years. We did drugs, diagnostics, and devices. No digital health. I stand by that decision. Not that it was mine to make, but sounds good. And so I was working in 2 of our drug development companies. We exited those companies. Partners weren't going to raise a fund 3. And so I really wanted to get back into women's health. And so at the encouragement of my husband, I founded Hera. And so I initially kind of looked at the drug development space, and outside of oncology saw that really nothing was around disease modifying. It was really focused on symptom control. And so that led me down a rabbit hole. And I decided what women's health really needs is a robust diagnostic company doing real diagnostics, not like fill out this survey and then we're going to pretend we can diagnose you with something over this app. No, thank you. In order to really drive change in the way that patients are cared for, and then options for therapeutics in these indications that specifically or uniquely impact women. So I founded Hera and brought on my former boss at the VC fund as my co-founder and executive chairman. He was my first check-in. And the vision that we have for Hera is really to be a precision diagnostics company. Women's health has a lot of really unique challenges, and you need to have multiple opportunities for diagnosis. So in our portfolio, we have a molecular diagnostic for endometriosis. Ergo, we have a molecular means of analyzing tissue, and we've developed a machine learning algorithm for endometriosis. We can develop one for other indications that require molecular means of analysis. And then on our cervical cancer side, we have a device that uses electrical and optical spectroscopy to analyze tissue. So we now have a structural means of analyzing tissue. And I think it's important to have both of those options when we're going after these indications in women's health, because you have to go after different disease states. So at our core, we're a precision diagnostics company. We are developing products that provide actionable insights and make drug development more efficient. We have the largest proprietary data set in endometriosis, the largest proprietary biobank. So we're the ones driving change, not just saying, congrats, you've been diagnosed with, kind of, sort of, maybe diagnosed with. I don't know what our competitors do, but I know we're a definitive diagnosis.
And just so people are familiar with a little bit, just at a higher level, what exactly is endometriosis? And then what is different or novel about your all solution?
Endometriosis, very simply, is when tissue very similar to that which kind of normally grows on the inside of your uterus is invading outside of your uterus. So very much like a cancer, cells growing where they don't belong, right? The biggest differentiator between endometriosis and a cancer is that these cells don't then grow at an unregulated rate, right? They kind of form a lesion and then they just sit there, and they can grow anywhere from, the base of your lung all the way down into the deep infiltrating, which grows sometimes in the lining of the bowels. And the lesions can be very small, they can be big, they can be about 7 different colors. So they're very, very difficult to identify. And the only way to diagnose endo definitively today is a surgery, where the surgeon quite literally goes in to look for the result of the disease growing somewhere in that cavity, right? So we lovingly refer to that as the Where's Waldo approach to diagnosis. And it's a difficult task. Yeah, I mean, that's literally like, but except that Waldo can wear 7 different types of outfits instead of just the one striped with the red hat, right? So really tough deal for surgeons, and they do a great job with what they have. But what Hera is doing is saying endometriosis is a disease that is the root cause of it is happening in the endometrium, the lining of the uterus, right? So we have developed a diagnostic based on messenger RNA. So we're looking at a gene signature that occurs in the lining of the uterus that tells us whether or not you have endometriosis. So instead of having a surgery, we collect a sample of your endometrium at a doctor's office visit, very similar to having an IUD placed. If you're not familiar with an endometrial biopsy, it takes about 5 minutes. And then we analyze that tissue for this gene signature to let you know whether or not you have endo.
Oh, that's interesting. Why do you think, and I was just looking through some of my notes here, and some of what you spoke to on some of the posts that I've looked at, like, why do you feel like women's health, like in general, and some of these categories have been underfunded, it seems like, and do you see that changing, like, or why?
Do you see me get itchy? I'm like, oh God. It's like a minefield. Why has it been underfunded? I think it's an epigenetic problem, right? There's a really fantastic book that actually covers the history of this. It's called It's All in Her Head by Elizabeth Coleman. I love it. It's written kind of like a medical text. So it's written by bodily system. And it goes through the history of, like, where does medicine come from? Who developed the study of medicine and the body? And well, it's all men, right? And the view of women in society or in culture throughout the ages has not always been where it is today. And some might argue we have a lot more work to do. And some might say we've made great progress, right? Are you an optimist or a pessimist, I guess? And so if you think about where a lot of our medical breakthroughs come from, it's from these decades, if not centuries, right, of the study of a disease. And we haven't studied women for that long, or biological differences, the shrink it and pink it kind of strategy, right? Or you couldn't possibly be anything other than a tiny little man. So that's where the kind of genesis of our knowledge comes from on women. And it's only now that we, in 1993, right, mandated women in clinical trials. So that's in my lifetime. Like, that's pretty crazy. Not that I'm young, but I'm not old. So there's that. And so it's only now that we're starting to get to a body of knowledge from which we can derive information that's actionable, right? So I think for the most part, it's how the field of study was developed, whom developed that field of study, what their priority was, self-serving interest, right? I'm a woman, I'm in women's health. I could go into prostate cancer. No, I'm good. So, we all have that kind of bias, right? Like, what is serving me? And so I think that's a big driver behind it. And the other side of that coin is, it's not right, but it's true. Women do an excellent job of minimizing our own discomfort, our own pain in the interest of those around us. And one might argue we're socially conditioned to do that, or you can argue anything, but we do it really, really well for the most part. And otherwise, we'd all never have more than one child. So if that's your path. So, I think that's it's a whole effect, right? But I think that as we get insights, as we develop innovative products, and as you see success stories happen, it's going to change. It will drive more investment in the field. I mean, all of the economic data coming out now that women's health is expected to be $1 trillion industry. Investors won't ignore $1 trillion industries for very long. I just hope that we see the next wave of investors in women's health doing more than direct to consumer stuff, because I think that's where we drive the real patient change, is when we start talking about how do we shift the way this woman is cared for in the healthcare system? How do we deliver healthcare to her? Not just what can we sell her on her phone?
Yeah, a complete shift.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's been working well so far for you, and what's been frustrating on the other side of that?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm going to get in so much trouble on this podcast. No, I mean, my motto is, what are they going to do? Not fund you harder? Like, they're not already funding you. Like, don't tease me with a good time.
Yeah.
So I think what's been frustrating, and I've said this before, is women were gaslit, women were ignored, women were not included in the conversation. Not okay, not right. So every woman is operating and being cared for in a system that was not built for her, nor was she considered in it, right? In terms of healthcare. So then when women's health started gaining traction and we came up with these really fun words like femtech, to give us a vernacular, the pendulum swung to the complete opposite end, right? And it was flood the app store, flood direct to consumer, ship it to her, and women were treated as consumers of health, which we are, rather than patients in healthcare. Like every other person in healthcare is treated in different indications, right? And I think that that is both frustrating and an opportunity as a former investor, right? You are dealing with a very, very unique type of patient. Women have proved and continue to prove that if you do not cover their healthcare, they absolutely will pay for it. So that's different, because when you talk about who's going to pay for healthcare and it's payers and you've got to change the system, right? That means big data, long studies, right? So in women's health, we have an opportunity to generate the data needed to shift how payers think about paying for women's health, because we do have a set of patients who will pay for their care. Is that everybody? No. Is everybody going to be able to do it? No. Should they have to? Absolutely not. But they will, and it gives us the power to then shift how it's paid for and whom should pay for it, right? So I think that that's a unique opportunity, but that's been really frustrating, and seeing the trend of like shutting doctors out of the equation. That's not the answer. Cutting the doctor out is not the answer, because at some point, the app is done. The app is over. The app can't prescribe her something. And God forbid we let ChatGPT diagnose anybody with anything. And so you have to include the physician in this equation. And I don't think cutting them out is the right answer. And so that's kind of where Hera sits. And that's the opportunity for us. We're delivering better tools to clinicians to enable them to have more meaningful interactions with their patients and offer them solutions for these indications that have been, traditionally, kind of swept under the rug, or just, slap a birth control pill at it and hope it works. But also providing data and insights that drives more efficient drug development, and makes that faster.
On that note, challenges in terms of from the reimbursement landscape?
Yes, payers don't hate me. They don't pay for women's health the way that they pay for other things. So like a gynecologist, whatever a male surgeon is, I don't know, a urologist can do the same procedure. The OB-GYN or the gynecologist will get paid differently than the other one. OB-GYNs need to make a lot more money. Their procedures are reimbursed at ridiculously low numbers. So they are some of the most specialized clinicians. I recently heard that they actually tend to score the highest on their boards. They're responsible for a huge number of indications, not only for their patients, but for the fetuses of their patients. And we pay them terribly. So they continually get squeezed for margin. And so I think we need to reimburse that better. I think payers need to recognize that preventative care in women's health is actually saving you money. Diagnosing breast cancer early means it's almost always treatable. And that includes for women who have dense breasts and need an MRI versus a mammogram, right? Still, if you find that breast cancer in a dense breast tissue patient early, it is way cheaper than if you mammogram her to death and we find it in a later stage 5 years from now. I think shifting that viewpoint is important, and then reimbursing procedures equally, equal pay for OB-GYNs, then I think drives a huge amount of change as well.
That's sad to hear, but exciting to maybe see that there is a shift coming in a new direction that you seem pretty passionate about, which is great to hear.
Yeah.
So what about, I feel like a lot of times what inspires the entrepreneurial journey too is the actual patients and the outcomes too. So, I mean, what's been inspiring for you that you've seen, stories or interaction with clinicians and patients on the technology?
The clinicians, to me, when they figure out, like, this is us with you, how do we help you? Right? How do we make something that you want? It gets them so excited. The scientific rationale, it's not just, oh, we're going to go on a fishing expedition and we're going to take these 200 markers and pretend like we haven't overfit this algorithm. Ha ha ha. Like, nope. Real science, real patients, real data. And I think to see them get excited about the fact that, oh, wait, this is actually something that I can wrap my head around. This isn't going to drive a patient into my clinic with a piece of paper that she printed out, and now she's freaking out because, she's got whatever WebMD said she's got off the internet, right? And so I think that that's been really exciting, seeing how eager they are to be able to do this and learning about how we can work with clinicians has been really fun. We get to work with clinicians across geographies. Our cervical cancer device is being launched in Latin America initially. So understanding how healthcare is delivered differently across geographies has been really eye-opening and quite exciting. I was a little bit brokenhearted when I realized exactly how ethnocentric the American healthcare system is. That's a little disheartening. And what we prioritize versus what people who are like dealing with real big issues, like, no one should die of cervical cancer ever, right? It's one of the most treatable cancers. And it's a huge killer of women in low to middle income markets. And so a perfect example of that is, like, we see a lot of push in the US to just focus on HPV testing because we, in all of our infinite wisdom, have decided that all cervical cancer comes from 2 strains of HPV. I think that's a dangerous correlation to say that HPV is sufficient for testing women for cervical cancer. It's not cervical cancer. But then when you talk to doctors outside of the US, they're like, who cares about HPV? Why would anyone do that? And it's like, wait, what? What do you mean? Our whole system is like shifting towards that. What do you mean? And they're like, can't treat HPV, can't cure it. What do you care if she has it? The only thing that matters about HPV is if she's got cervical cancer, because I can treat that. I can cure that. So why in the hell are you testing for that? And it's like, oh, I need to unravel that a bit and like process what you just said, because here I am, in the year of our Lord 2025, thinking that like, pap smear and HPV testing, like I'm good. So it's an interesting shift in your perspective of healthcare globally, right? And then just seeing patients. Patients are the best and patients are the worst. Like, I will give them that. And that's fair, because when I'm a patient, I'm probably the worst. But listening to their stories, listening to what these women have endured, what they've overcome, and their willingness to share that and to talk about it and to engage in a meaningful conversation about how our product can serve them, even though in this healthcare system, they're not our customer, is really an important conversation. And I'm always honored when patients are willing to engage with me and have that conversation, even if it's stuff I don't want to hear. You can say it in a respectful way, and I can say things you don't want to hear in a respectful way. But the conversation, which I think is now an even bigger conversation than just in healthcare, right? Like we can have differences of opinions and we can disagree on things, and we can still be civil and engage in that conversation, because that's the only way we're going to have meaningful progress.
Agreed. Yeah. with
I told
the
you I was going to get in a ton of trouble on this podcast. It's crazy.
there's no trouble here. This is open. This is an open forum for discussion, which is I feel like how more things should be. But
Agreed.
but on the OUS, I'm just curious, having done that before with like Latin America, and just it is different in different countries, like obviously. And one of those I'm just curious about for you, like different from a sales and ground levels perspective too. It's one thing like the market and what it wants. Or how have you tackled that? Or are you using distribution channels down there, or how is that going or working? Or
We are probably the most geographically diverse team ever. I think I am one of two US born citizens on our team. So our team sits across Canada, Switzerland, and Mexico.
well,
And so our engineering and manufacturing is all in Monterrey, Mexico, right? And so are our clinical partners there because our device is going through regulatory approval there first. And the rationale for that is 94% of cervical cancer deaths come from low to middle income countries. And so that's where the device needs to be deployed initially. So that's what we're doing. We are using distributors. We've got secured distribution in 8 Latin American territories. It's a little different down there in that if you're going to distribute in a country, you have to have a distributor set up in that country, right? So you want to distribute in Chile, you have to have a Chilean company that distributes. Ecuador, Honduras, all of them. And so what we have found really successful is we have an incredible partner called Medicana. They're out of the US, Miami specifically. Two brilliant MIT women started this company who are from Latin America, and they recognize the difficulty for medical innovation to enter the market. So they set up this distributor. And so basically they serve as our eyes and ears on the ground. They have relationships with over 150 distributors or 250 distributors across different Latin American geographies. And so it really allows us to have one core partner that helps us navigate each of those unique geographies.
and did they help you disseminate the education as well?
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of that one
Yep.
point, and they roll it all down the
Yep.
training for the teams on the ground.
Trainings for the teams, everything is synthesized. There's very little differences between regulatory requirements across those geographies in terms of training and marketing and materials. So we have one core repository for anything that's allowed to be marketed that can be branded by the local distributor, et cetera, et cetera. And they serve as our core. And then if there's a slight nuance or if some particular marketing aspect is more valued in Chile than it is in Argentina, then they can submit a request for a change in the language, but it gives us one point of contact to make those decisions, which our quality and regulatory person loves.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm jealous. What I managed in there was like going to each individual country and looking and searching and trying to find a distributor for one. That sounds like
Yeah, they've got a
great.
great business. They've got a great business. So they vet everybody and do everything. And we can be very selective, but we will have a direct sales force that goes and supports those distributor relationships in those territories because someone's got to be driving, demand backwards to the distributor. No different on that relationship than it is in the US. It's not a catalog.
Yeah, always the same. I was always challenged down there. They can have a large portfolio, extremely large portfolio, so it can be challenging. So you do have plans to go in that direction at some point?
Yeah. Yes. So we will hire a small direct sales force that supports those distributor relationships and drives business in for our products.
Okay, perfect. And on that note, what would be dream, I guess? Where do you want to be in the Hera to be in the next 12 to 18 months?
We'll be launched in the US with our endometriosis product.
Okay.
And we'll be scaling across LATAM. We're currently negotiating agreements for the Southeast Asian market, Indian market, and a couple of geographies in Africa. So I would at least want one of those nailed down. And so I'm excited. Like, I can't wait to go visit. This is so self-serving. Our Southeast Asian distributor, take me to Cambodia and Thailand, and Singapore. Let's meet these people. I'll just have to waddle home because I'm sure I'll eat all the food. But yeah, so I would like to see that. And then obviously with our endometriosis product, we'll be, launching it in the US and getting it into some fertility and OB-GYN clinics.
And then any advice that you would give to founders in biotech, even to women specifically?
If you're thinking about doing something, if you're thinking about starting a company or joining a startup or, whatever that shift over into entrepreneurship might look like for you, whether it be in biotech or other, you are never going to regret betting on yourself. It could fail miserably. But at no point in your life are you going to be sitting on a porch and be like, oh man, I should have never bet on myself. Like, that just is not going to be a conversation you're having. It's going to be like, well, that was a catastrophe, or well, that was amazing. And the amazing comes with lots of catastrophes. So give yourself a lot of grace. It's the same advice I give people who are thinking about having children. Give yourself as much grace as you need, because who cares what anybody else thinks? I mean, nobody liked what we were building when we first started building it. They were like, ugh, tissue, ugh, data, ugh. Like, oh no, everybody wants a blood test. Yeah, well, unless it doesn't work or unless it doesn't give you information you can use to create products to cure this or treat it or change the way the patient's cared for. Like, if it's not actionable, how helpful is it? If you've got a gut feeling about why you're building what you're building and you've got a lot of clarity around that, it's really important that you hold that close.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's fantastic to kind of hear about your story and your journey and where it's going and just where like innovation that's occurring specifically in what seems like a very unrepresented space historically. So
yeah,
I'm really curious to follow your journey and see where that goes. On that note, I mean, if people want to, what's the best way to follow that and where you all are going?
So our company is on all the socials, Hera Biotech. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and I don't even know what all. We're on LinkedIn for sure. And we have our website, herabiotech.com. I don't do social media. I am only on LinkedIn. So if you want to reach me, that's the place to do it, or you can email me. It's just my first name at herabiotech.com. So I'm typically an inbox to zero girl. So I will always get, ha ha ha. Yeah. I say that and now I'm going to get like 4,000 emails and I'm going to be like, I'm sorry, I didn't get back to you. No, you can always reach us. And you can contact us through the website or LinkedIn.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I'm Christopher Wilson with MedAccess Podcast AI. And yeah, that's it. That's what we got for today. Feel free to look up and follow Somer's journey as she continues this in women's health. I'm excited to see where it goes and what comes up along the way.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your week.
Thanks. Same to you.
Thank you for tuning in to the MedAccess AI podcast, where we explore the intersection between medicine, technology, and human potential. For more info on today's guests, please check out the links in the show notes. If you enjoyed the episode, please follow us on YouTube or check out our website at medaccessai.org. I'm your host, Christopher Wilson. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.